Hi everyone, welcome back to Calliope Music Reviews. My name is Colin and this is Music Canon. I am so glad to see you all here today because we're looking at the legendary post-metal and black gaze pioneers Deafheaven and their sixth full-length album Lonely People with Power. Now, when I say pioneers, I don't mean people who think it's a good idea to leave a can of Coke for one of the last remaining undisturbed tribes. No, I mean Da Vinci, Franklin, inventors. That is what Deafheaven are. They are inventors of the shoegaze slash black metal marriage that is the black gaze genre, which the band introduced to keen listeners on their 2011 debut album, Roads to Judah. The four-piece would, in the eyes of many, perfect this dreamy but acidic density on the seminal Sunbather in 2013. Since then, Deafheaven has toyed around with more traditional atmospheric black metal offerings and more melodious pop projects before settling onto the sound featured here on Lonely People with Power. And I'm just gonna get this out of the way now. This album is the band's best, and I'm gonna tell you why. Lonely People with Power is possibly the purest demonstration of post-metal and black gaze that has ever graced the earth. The sound is founded on flaming guitars that sit in the driver's seat of pummeling drums and absolutely scorching bass riffs. The instrumentals are played in speedy, often fractionated tempos that make each component intermingle into a mix of brazen and hazy atmospherics. The fiery distortion of the lead guitars are complemented by a quite dreamy, clean guitar that reverberates in the background, adding melody and mood to these robust movements. These guitars often build tension that is exploited when lead singer George Clark screams his heart out alongside sweltering profusions of distortion and spine-tingling drum sections. I think these three components, the guitar, the vocals, and the drums, are really what make black gaze recognizable as a genre and are displayed to their fullest when Deafheaven is laying it all out there like they are on this record. Lonely People with Power has some of the most addicting modern heavy metal riffs, akin to a sweet eruption of lava pouring over you, burning, but releasing so much steam and fervor in the process. This is what gives the record a harrowing but hugely exciting feel, like a journey through this very liquid density, always flowing quite smoothly despite caustic guitar and vocal elements. And vocally, George Clark has some of the purest stick your tongue out and say ah screams in all of contemporary metal music, occasionally stripping it back and bringing more traditional melody during the slower moments. And lastly, there are the drums. While the entire band is playing with an expert technical precision on this record, drummer Daniel Tracy is on a complete another level in his meticulous contraptions of ticking hi-hats, splashing cymbals, and incredible fluent kicks. He's simply amazing on this album. When all of these elements come together, the album is able to unshackle this waterfall of agony that's dispersed evenly over your entire body, like the echoing guitar and timely cymbals on the outro of The Garden Route. It's not a flawless record. There are some overdone metal textures and slower incidental interludes that don't provide anything of real note other than a slight breather between tracks. But I do want to point out the seventh song, Incidental 2, as it sees the band experiment a little with a quite destructive industrial turn at the end, reminiscent of the synthetics heard on Euboa's 2024 album, Impossible Light. But anyways, this album shows that Deafheaven can operate beyond its atmosphere as well, with some seriously tense songwriting. Whether it's the meticulous slow burn of Amethyst, the scintillating and surprisingly cheerful guitars on Body Behavior, or the warm and uplifting sounds of Winona, the band never ceases to carry a momentous reflection onto the listener. The vibrations here can be gloomy and nostalgic, but are truly epic compositions that you can fight a Dark Souls boss to, for example. I mean, this is the music that will keep you going after dying to the same obnoxiously timed attack 68 times in a row. That's how powerful this music is. It fights frustration with a cathartic frustration of its own. And of course, frustration is a central theme of the record as well. In his lyrics, Clarke traverses the frustrations of power structures and social dynamics, saying that those who seek power end up being the loneliest people of us all as they force their insecurities and traumas onto others. And that doesn't just go for world leaders and politicians. That applies to everyday authority figures like parents and even teachers. The second track, Doberman, introduces this sort of cycle of fear and insecurity as the narrator describes a person trapped in their own depressive thoughts, like a self-judging panopticon always watching within themselves. Magnolia then touches on the existential, seeing Clarke cry out of powerlessness for the inevitability of death. Heathen then showcases the origin of our lonely leader, a man lost and turned away from intimacy out of fear for portraying his true self. The eighth song, Revelator, is where the narrator sort of comes to terms with their loneliness, channeling it as anger for harsh truths they learned on the first half of the album. Then a song like Body Behavior makes for a crushing personal anecdote of sexual objectification and how those in power often force their ideals onto the youth, essentially cursing them for life with bodily insecurity. The penultimate track, Winona, in all of its glory, continues to utilize this personal trauma to explain how power structures can strip people of identity and purpose. It uses the metaphor of the Greek titan Kronos, aka Saturn, as referred in the album, to explain how power leads to greed and betrayal, like how Kronos eats his own son to avoid a prophecy predicting his son would overthrow him. And finally, the last track, The Marvelous Orange Tree, uses some warm Californian imagery to conclude with a crude acceptance of this illness that pollutes people. It's described as something to be carried in perpetuity rather than something that can be escaped from or that can even be improved upon, ending with the harrowing lines, "With my endless illness, walking into blackness." While the record's imagery isn't particularly interesting and there's a lot of cliche black metal phrasing here, this acceptance alongside the album's fleshed out concept makes it a heart-rending experience when the lyrics are accounted for. And if you can get over some of the formulaic moments and the drier interludes, Lonely People with Power really starts to become a significant occasion for alternative metal music. The fluidity and fidelity of the progressions, the glowing substance of the atmospheres, and the gut-wrenching power dynamics on display make this an essential listen. So I'm thinking a 8.5 out of 10 for Deafheaven's Lonely People with Power. At least treat yourself to the 6th track, Amethyst, the 9th song, Body Behavior, and the climax of the album, Winona, if you're not planning on listening to this entire album. But I beg, do listen to the entire album. And alright, that will do it for this quick review on Deafheaven's new record. If you haven't listened, give it a shot. If you're into metal music, I guarantee you'll probably like this. But leave your opinions in the comments below, as always. And of course, you can also recommend any other albums or artists that you would like me to review in the future. And with that, this has been Deafheaven, the music canon, and I will see all of you guys in the next one.